Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. To capitalize on Ike's general popularity with the release of CYL and the voting gauntlet, and the fact that he won his first round against Roy, luckily, pretty close there, I figured now would be a good time to do a hero spotlight on Ike. But before we get started with that, I want to mention that I actually recorded narration on these video clips previously already, except when I plugged in my headset, the recording decided that it wanted to record my narration from two different mics, and it sounds absolutely god-awful and weird. So I muted the audio, and I'm recording new narration. And hopefully it'll actually go better than the original. But anyway, here is my Ike. He was a plus defense, minus HP Ike, and he's gone through 2 merges. And he has his HP, attack, speed, and defense all increased. I think each by 1 so far. So since my Ike is more defensive orientated because of his IVs, I decided to go with the quick riposte build. I chose threat and defense for his C skill to help secure more kills. If you're going to be using your Ike with heavy blade, and I'd say about almost all of you will be unless your Ike has an attack bane, you should equip Ike with the attack +1 sacred seal to just put him over the top of being competitive, because you want his attack to be the best, otherwise you're losing out on value. When you use heavy blade, you'll be also wanting to use a special such as Aether, Gale Force, or even something as goofy as Miracle, like I have. It was really funny in a previous video. I equipped Renewal 3 for his B, and then Miracle, because I need Renewal to give him some sort of healing so he can use Miracle multiple times, as crazy as that sounds. And I left it on. I forgot to take it off overnight, and I wake up the next morning, and in Arena, I had, like, at least 10 defense wins. It was pretty goofy. Pretty goofy. Now, Ike, to talk about him in a more general sense, he has a lot of versatility. His weapon is 16 might, which is the highest in the game, same as many other weapons that are also legendary. And it comes with distant counter, which is incredibly powerful, which frees up that A slot for something like, you know, Heavy Blade, Death Blow, Fury, other very common A skills like that, to just take his very high attack and just push it even more over the top. So, because Ike has such versatility and can use many skills and many strategies to great effect, his IVs are actually very important. This Ike right here happens to be a plus HP minus resistance Ike. Having minus resistance on Ike is actually very good due to the fact that his normal, about 18 resistance, I believe, is pretty bad the way it is, so you wouldn't normally be wanting to use him against mages, but I honestly fucking do all the time anyway, despite that. This Ike right here happens to be plus speed minus defense, so he's basically a knockoff Ryoma. And you can kind of use him as such, because his IVs, just that plus and minus 3, can make such a big change in his stat spread that you can actually make so many different builds depending on his IVs. For example, because of his high speed, you could probably get more value out of a Vantage build because his speed is high enough to somewhat compete with a lot of the other units in the game, allowing him to double, and maybe even double some more competitive units with the help of other characters, using rally speed or maybe hone. So in this case, this particular Ike, if I had this one, I would probably slap a Vantage on him, which gets great use out of distant counter users also. So depending on your particular Ike's IVs, you could have an entirely different Ike than the next guy. It's pretty crazy. He's probably one of the most versatile units in the game. And if you have one, I highly recommend investing in him and playing with him. Not in a... You know what I mean. But since I'm on the topic of IVs, something very important to talk about is the dreaded Attack Bane. If your Ike has an Attack Bane, he will have an ending attack value of 48. Which, it's not good. It's kind of sad, a little bit depressing, but that doesn't mean you have to take this Ike and throw him in the trash. All that means is that you can't use Heavy Blade to great effect. In this case, you would be very good at using Fury. Essentially, the Attack Bane is almost a silver lining, if you will, allowing you to replace that A slot with something else people, normally wouldn't. Giving him that Fury with Vantage, because Fury and Vantage synergize extremely well with each other. It will boost his already great stat spread even higher. And heck, it would also possibly allow him to tank mages better. So if you had... Let's theorize for a second here, because I was highlighting the resistance right there. Let's theorize that you had the worst IV possible, and that would probably be minus attack and plus resistance. Say you replace Heavy Blade with Fury, and now you have a 24 resistance Ike. That's not too bad, really. You can actually get some use out of him as a mage bait because of that inflated resistance value. Because that's normally a weakness. So the awesome thing about Ike is that his stat spread is high and, generally spread out. Everything's at least above average, except for his resistance. Everybody needs some sort of weakness, right? That you could essentially replace the tools in his kit and push almost any one of these values over the top and make him extremely good at that one thing. One or two things. Or even everything, really, with Fury, in that case. In so doing, his C skill is also very versatile. You can see I went with threat and defense on my Ike, so, I can secure kills. But he can also get a lot of value out of threat and speed. Like I mentioned that speed boon Ike earlier. You could give him threat and speed, and he would probably reliably double a lot of things, leading credence to a more aggressive build as opposed to the more defensive route I chose to go with my defensive boon Ike with quick riposte. And sorry if the mic's making some weird noises. Sometimes when I talk, I like to get up and then walk around, which is what I'm currently doing. So sorry about that if it made any weird noises, because I'm using a headset and it's got a mic that dangles off the wire. But anyway, due to the fact that Ike's IVs can be variable, affecting the build that would be most efficient on him in substantial ways, and also the fact that he can use many skills to great effect, is pretty crazy, honestly. So it makes it difficult to tell you what's the best or what's most meta, because depending on your particular Ike, he could use something better compared to something else, if you know what I mean. Because now that I think about it, the only Ikes I really ever see are the ones primarily running Heavy Blade. That's about 90% of the Ikes I see. And then the other 10%, they're running Fury. Otherwise, I don't see any other, more commonly known A skills, such as Death Blow or Life and Death. Actually, while I'm on the subject of Life and Death, I wonder how a Life and Death Ike would look. That would actually be pretty interesting. I bet he could make use out of it, but it would make him like a knockoff Lucina. I'd actually like to see a Life and Death Ike. That would be very interesting. I've never seen that, and I've never thought of it until now, which is crazy, because Life and Death is a very meta skill, really. But since we're on the topic of meta, I just want to show my Miracle and Renewal build real quick, which is probably the most interesting build I've ever seen, because, I'm insane and I come up with insane things. So, the sustainability and the healing that is normally granted by Aether is now replaced by Miracle, so I have to get the healing from elsewhere. Sure, you could just, put a healer on your team, but I'd rather my units be more self-sustaining rather than requiring another unit on the team, if you know what I mean. I mean, sure, teams are a thing, and, team synergy is definitely relevant, but in the case of individual builds and speculating and talking about them, I'd rather them just be, them on their own in the broad spectrum of things. So to get Ike's healing, to get the most use out of Miracle possible, he's got Renewal to be able to heal himself every other turn. Because Miracle doesn't work if you're at 1 HP, so you need to get at least something in order to proc it again. And when I've used it offensively, when I played the game, I can make Miracle proc 2 or 3 times in a single game. It's hilarious and very satisfying. It's very satisfying when you can make like a very goofy build that nobody would ever think to build in the first place, get it to work. It's pretty funny. I liked it. Granted, it's not the best thing you could ever do, but it's fun. I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, going back to, the skills that you would normally think of in each slot. For example, A, I already went over that, and B skills like the first things that come to mind are Quick Riposte, Vantage, Desperation. They come to mind immediately compared to other also, good and competitive skills. But these very common ones, I can make use of and get a lot of value out of the majority of them all. It's pretty crazy, really. You could almost give Ike generally any build and not be particularly wrong, but other people might tell you, oh, this one would be better in this case. But in the broad spectrum of things, you pretty much can't go wrong. Sure, you could stick Desperation on an Ike. Granted, it's not the best thing, but it's not wrong either. Like if you've got a Speed Boon Ike, that will put him at 34. You give him, Threaten Speed. Like that one particular Ike was Defense Bane Speed Boon. So in that case, you wouldn't normally be wanting him to be an enemy phase unit. He would be more akin to an aggressive one because of that lower defense. So you could actually get a lot of value out of Desperation, even though it's not normally something that would be considered the best. Ike having a lot of versatility is a very huge boon, but it also hurts a little bit, not very much at all. It makes it so he doesn't specialize in any one category too powerfully. But the fact that his versatility is so broad, you could make him excel in many things at once and get tons of value out of that in itself. Like, compared to Ike, in a specific category, for example, you know, versus Hector, Hector would probably beat Ike in, like, enemy phase stuff. But in a broader spectrum, in overall use, compared to Hector, you know, Ike has more movement, he's got more player phase options, you know, stuff like that. So, specializing in things, Ike doesn't excel compared to other units. But in doing many jobs at once, he excels. If you understand what I'm rambling about, because at this point I'm starting to lose myself. So let me just talk about Voting Gauntlet real quick. I'm hoping that Ike is going to win this one as well, as he just barely beat out Roy. That one was, you know, sweat-droppingly close. A weird adjective. I feel like Ike is going to win this round, and Lynn is going to win hers, and we're going to end up going Ike versus Lynn. The real question is a male finally going to win Voting Gauntlet? And I think a female has won every single one so far? Pretty sure. We'll see if the most popular male ever can win Voting Gauntlet against a female. We'll find out.